gloss impasto glaze has dried. And you can see the various tints and things. This is looking very yellow over here. You can start to see some unification. I mean, you compare this to earlier on, You can see our glazing is actually starting to unify the surface. Has this odd effect of making this sort of disjointed patchwork, knife and brushstroke marker work actually starts to look like a unified painting, which is the reason why I developed this technique. I like unifying it with the glaze and bringing it all together. As this painting goes on, there's more and more smaller areas of like real detailed paintwork that's going on, which is fine. I like the directness and immediacy of just scraping paint on, slapping brushwork on, whatever you got to do, and various types of brushwork. But even with the straight edge, I like using a straight edge very loosely. I love the effect of a straight line, but I don't want to sit there and be like a draftsman, and I like the precision. Like, I want the straight line. I don't care about the precision. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, that's how this style sort of technique rather sort of developed. I suppose you could call it a style, but in truth, I'm traversing styles there. I talked a little before about graffiti, but of course there is commercial art in this too. You've got to mix the palette. So basically what Speed Hand is saying there is we have Liquitex gloss medium here. This is the standard palette we've been using. I mean, it's slightly expanded, because this is, I don't know, this isn't a hand side. It may be a quinacridone, but anyway, the point is all our reds here are modern colors, right? Or our warms here are modern colors. Most of it is traditional, all our browns are traditional stuff. So we have two types of phthalo here. So this is a phthalo turquoise, which is, of course, a phthalo green and phthalo blue. I said earlier that, oh, yeah, look at this. So this is the buff being mixed into the turquoise, but it's like a blue turquoise. So it's a phthalo turquoise, which is phthalo blue, phthalo green, with an extra helping of phthalo blue. So it's like 2 parts blue, 1 part phthalo green. Cut with the buff, and it has a nice, nice little, a neutralizing effect. This is burnt sienna. You can tell it's like a reddish brown. This is a Payne's gray. So this is Payne's gray bone black. Just setting up my secondary palette, right? So you have the palette, and we have the the regular palette, and we have the secondary colors, and most of the mixing is done in the secondary sort of tint area. And if I need to go intense, I'll go from a tint more intense rather than mixing up from the pure pigment. I'm going to go less tinted next time because it got a little pastel, right? Pastel is okay in this technique because every pastel color you lay down, you end up glazing, there are 5 layers of glaze, like impasto glaze. This is a thick painting. And so you knock back any pasteliness real quick. But there's a certain efficiency of painting I kind of want to achieve going forward, and I just don't want to be glazing and then laying down and back and forth too much. I'd like to keep it to at most maybe 3 glazes. Probably back off on tinting these colors so much. That's a little over tinted, even though that's not. I mean, these these are mid-tone enough. And this is really where I keep the sky most of the time in the painting. And the sky is what I was most worried about, keeping my sort of mid-tone consistent, right? But that's fine. Anyway, that's enough, I think, for the palette. This is a brush taped to another brush. It's more than just tape, but tape is the final layer. I love long bristle brushes, but this is a round, long bristle brush that I can stand. I end up being 5 feet away from the canvas while I'm painting, and boy, I just love it. I'm going for a very specific consistency of paint. I mean, technically that was a watercolor brush. I want a paint that's fluid enough that even on that long bristle brush that I can just move it around as is. And this is something I can essentially draw with, but in a painterly style. And if you want to know what that looks like, look at an artist called Leyendecker. If you want to see what just it's like, instead of brushwork like a like a Picasso or a Monet or something like that, your color intelligence, of a Leyendecker is very high, right? Very high color intelligence, like a Monet or something like that. I mean, he wrote the book, right? But your brushstrokes are very fluid, more like a calligraphic style, right? So I'm looking for, like, I want calligraphy paint. um and you get that through this like long bristled brush, where you can do these brush strokes that are like really dynamic and really changing thickness. In order to do that, you have to really tailor the character of your paint, which is why there's so many mediums and things in this style, especially this style, right? And so I'm ending up like laying down very like calligraphy like brushwork on top of all these layers of like scraped paint and like really chiseled in brushwork, right? And that's why this slick surface here that you can see is so fun to use, because you have this slick surface where you can just like draw on top of it with very fluid paint, and you get painterly calligraphy. And you'll see it as we go on in the channel here, but man, I wish I would have got this whole area better. It was so fun. I loved stuff like that. Like this whole area is just so fun, because you have this beautiful edge going on here, and it's just like drowned out by that like specular highlight. But you could see like a stroke like over here, where it was one stroke that's just like, you get to like curl the brush, and if you put pressure on it, it fans out, and it was just like what, and just done one stroke. It loved stuff like that. Yeah, so I wasn't happy with the way I was building up the glaze here. What I really wanted to do was kind of create a halo effect with the glaze, and I just I just abandoned that and decided to just paint it in. And I actually really like what I ended up doing, which is like after all this, I because I had such a thoroughly sort of understood mixing of the blues and stuff. I actually scraped back into a lot of this, and I'm explaining it because I didn't get it on. It's one of those inspired moments that I just missed the filming of. But so I'm building up the gradient here, but I actually scraped back into it after it dried with the palette knife, and it was just like the texture was just perfect. And so you have this random texture being brought back in over this red, and it just ends up building. And not, I got some good shots of good footage of the end product, but I actually started putting some green and some other odd colors in here because it was getting the glazes, it got too uniform with yellow. And so you start putting some other colors of light in there, or just other colors period, it started like it just got so dimensional. It was real interesting. Just subtle variations in there. All right, so you saw how the secondary colors were mixed, okay? And where the palette has gone since then, there's a lot of paintwork that just happened. Man, I could just look at this stuff all day, right? So the secondary colors, there's some huge like secondary color pools happening here. Or these are tertiary, like these are from the tints I started with. I mean, look at how much that's been depleted too, because it's all like moved into here and whatever. And then of course taking those into like oranges and stuff, so you're like sort of re-intensifying colors, and but you know, slightly dirty. So I just wanted to show you the palette. Alright, I really don't like hearing myself in these recordings. Turn that off. Alright. So what we're gonna do here, I should probably show you the part of this where I glazed everything, but another glaze is dried and it is pretty. I think this is right after the glaze. I think that this last bit of paint has been covered. I will cover this soon, and you just saw me paint this, and so in between finishing this and what I just did, which was glaze, I'm doing this. Alright, see what it looks like. Okay, so I probably have some pictures of mixing this palette, but my arm was kind of in the way, so I'm not going to show it. So that's testing. Let's see how it looks. Oh yeah, see, it looks pretty good. It's going to dry a little dark, but now I'm cutting back into the red, and I'm trying to break up the red. So we have some scraping and some texturing. So we have some scraped texture coming back into the red, and what we're trying to do is break up this this sort of painted boundary there. I think I lined it up, threw a little more green in, but either way, just feeling the brush out. I'm using a really small one. I'd rather have the control. There's a lot of coastline, let's say. So, like I said, I'm trying to, like, the whole point is to break up the edge. Hesitant at this point. We'll get some good shots of this close up, because that's really what it should have been. I didn't realize it was going to be so fun. So now we're varying some color, trying to get some interesting gradients happening where I'm picking up on the same color, and I'm actually same kind of thing where I'm picking up on the light. So this is all like light scatter effects. So the light scattering effect, I'm moving into it, so it's essentially negative painting over here, and right here it's positive and positive. So let's see how far out we take it. Looks like I'm getting a little more green in here. I know that my thought has always been I want this a little more, I don't know, here I want a little more green, and this was a little too straight, and just I want some interesting stuff, because this whole area was looking very blue, but also very even in value. And so I want to start building some more interest there, but I think I kind of end up building color interest rather than value interest at this point. And the major value shifts, I end up putting like a gradient on here, almost like if you put a gradient in like Photoshop. That's the beauty of acrylic, is you can kind of do stuff. Oh wow, I'm breaking up that. There we go. Yeah, so I end up in the very end putting a brush sort of gradient over everything. So now it's like color interest and breaking up the sort of coastline of those lights. So we laid some here. You can almost see it dry. That's interesting. Let's watch that for a second. Look at this. This is acrylic drying. So we lay it on in this area. We get to the end. Yeah, still following some kind of invisible energy lines coming out here a little bit. Yeah, it's probably the same kind of sky mixtures. Mixed with a little bit more Hansa, you know. Getting very localized with the sky, more color variation. It's almost like what we have going on with some of these strokes here, but it's becoming a nice smooth blend through here. Shit, this whole time the fucking fan's been on. Good. Alright, so now looks like I'm introducing a little color into this area. I finally just got tired of looking at this thing and decided it was definitely time to start sculpting that area. Yeah, this is it. I get the brush out. I've laid the thick paint on that I want. Now it's really time to start thinking about edges. So what I want to start to do is build some kind of like blur. Let's get that cursor on if it works again. Alright, what I want to do is to start to get some kind of blur effects throughout here. I'm breaking up edges. I'm making it look like it's slightly motion blurred. There's slight color variation. I'm just starting to do things that are interesting here within the color space, and breaking up any edges that are too neat and clean, that we don't need that neat and clean. In fact, it's almost, I want to build up a kind of line weight, or at least a plausible area where these things all might line up, and kind of let your mind do the alignment a little bit.